The S&P 500 rose 0.8% and set an all-time high for the fourth time in 5 days. The Dow added 0.8% and the Nasdaq Composite rallied 1%. The reaction was bigger in the bond market, where Treasury yields jumped. The strong U.S. jobs data pushed traders to erase bets that the Federal Reserve could cut interest rates in its next meeting that's coming up later this month. The markets closed early in advance of Independence Day. The Dow up 344 points today to close at 44,828. The Nasdaq gained 208 points to 20,601. The S&P added 52 to 6279. For the Wall Street Business Report, I'm John Scott.
News and analysis at townhall.com.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Some passing clouds overnight with a low temperature dipping down to 73. Tomorrow, very nice for the 4th with sunshine-filled skies, a high climbing to 94. For the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, highs around 90. To go with a blend of sunshine and clouds, we have that usual 20% chance of an afternoon downpour. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. This is The Point. Make The Point.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblut and Chris Bergen. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil and Chris with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
And good evening to you again for the second night in a row. No Phil, no Chris, but we really thank you for spending your summer evening with us tonight on Sports Talk. Phil and Chris are away, leaving it to our producer, Josh Cohen, and myself, Matt Smith, to take your calls and text and share some insight from our guest tonight. And we have got a couple of good ones. A day after landing a highly touted recruit out of the Tar Heel State, the Gamecocks have extended another offer, this time to a low-country product that made an impression on Sean Elliott. We have more details on the settlement between Clemson and the upcoming All-Star game in Atlanta, and we'll have a Brave in the starting lineup. We'll get to those stories and more in a few moments. If you are a Braves fan, and Josh, I learned last night, you most certainly are not. Not only are you not a Braves fan, you're not a Tigers fan a Detroit Tigers fan.
No. I am a Tigers fan. I just can't say that I am super involved in behind the team. You know, I got too much to work on, and I love the Tigers. I watch almost every game, but I couldn't tell you who most of the people are. I know the big names, but I'm a fan. I'd say I'm a fan. I wouldn't say I'm a large fan.
No, I would not say that either, since when I said, do you think Tarek Skubal will start the All-Star game on the mound, you, I think, rolled your eyes, gave a shrug, and said something to the effect of, who cares? So, yeah, I got the message last night, Josh.
I don't know if I said that. That's a while. We have to pull back the tapes. I don't know about
Run
that.
the tape back. Well, it took you all day to get it up on SoundCloud, so I don't know if we've got it.
Well, we definitely have it.
Okay.
Now everybody else has it, just 20 hours later.
All right. I certainly I won't take any shots at you. I don't want what you dish out to Phil on a nightly basis.
Wow.
So
yeah.
All I was saying was, if you are a Braves fan, you'll want to be with us at the bottom of the hour. Longtime Georgia-based sports writer and broadcaster Bill Shanks is going to join us. Bill is always bringing a strong set of opinions, and he's got great insight into what the future may hold for the organization, because Bill tracks, he's authored a book on the Braves farm system, their run in the 90s, and he tracks not just what's going on with the big club, but also the farm teams as well. And with all the injuries the Braves are dealing with, if you missed it yesterday, Spencer Schwellenbach has gone on the injured list with a fractured elbow. So The Braves have had to deal with it this year. PED suspension for Jurickson Profar, who returned last night, hit a homer in the Braves' 8-3 victory over the Angels. Ronald Acuna Jr. just got back. He's played less than 40 games with the club, and the Braves have had no less than 4 starters go down for an extended period of time. Spencer Schwellenbach is the latest, but of course he joins a list that includes Spencer Strider and Chris Sale. So what a staff the Braves could have. What a lineup they could have if they're ever fully healthy. And are they still in it? Do they believe they're still in it? They entered the day 6.5 games out of the second wild card spot. So we will talk to Bill Shanks about that. Hour 2 is going to take us in the fast lane with Jeff Owens, where we'll preview this weekend's street race in Chicago and touch on a couple of other big picture items for NASCAR. So we certainly wanted to get you that this week, even though we will have no show on the 4th of July tomorrow in Jeff's customary spot. We wanted to get that to you. And before we get to our news notes today, Josh, no major stories, but there is some things to share. But I forgot to mention, I'll put this on me, that yesterday was the midway point of the year. July 2nd, midway point of the year. So you cut the calendar in half. I think it took place, I guess, at noon yesterday. So it occurred to me, Josh, we always make New Year's resolutions, but we never review them, right? We only talk about them when they're coming up and when we've just made them. And then everybody does what they're going to do. They stop eating gluten. They go to the gym for a week and a half if they can. They start spending more time with their kids until their kids annoy them. They stop playing golf so much on the weekend, but then Phil gives that up after a month. Did you have a New Year's resolution this year? And if so, do you want to amend it now that we've reached the midway point?
I don't really remember what mine was, I think.
You had one, and you probably didn't keep it if you don't remember.
No, I definitely did not keep it. I think probably it had something to do. Mine's more of a not a New Year's resolution, but almost of something I want. Like, I don't want to work for it, but I'll just say I want this, right?
Okay.
So I guess mine was I want to see the Gators in the championship this year, or in football, some kind of playoff contender this year.
Okay.
So I wouldn't even say it's that. I just want my sports teams to be good.
Right. That is your So you made a wish.
Yeah.
You made a
New Year's wish. That's what I do.
That is fair, and you're not going to have to do anything for it. And what your resolution can be this coming year is how you're going to grapple with the failure of Billy Napier at Florida. How you emotionally are going to do it. That can be your resolution. I don't know whether it's going to be therapy or you can have a support group of other Gators fans. You know, like those of you, I don't know, like a Steve Spurrier is God.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this: there is a Columbia Gator Club, and I have been to one of the meetings there, one time years ago. Anyways, I think it's not going to be a resolution of failure. I think it's going to be a resolution of them putting it together. I think they're going to do well. I really do. I mean, as I'm not a big fan of Billy Napier, as we talked before, I still think they have the product and the talent to be able to. They definitely have the money to do well.
Well, they do. And you know what? That takes us to one of our biggest stories today. And you know what? I think there's something there when you just said Florida has the money. We'll come back to that. So put a pin in that. I also want to remind everybody, plenty of room for phone calls tonight. And we had a couple of good ones last night. Our number, 888-898-2525. You can share your mid-year resolutions with us or just amend your New Year's resolution with us here on Sports Talk. We also have a text line. No waiting, right? Just text 803-900-4847. Simply text 803-900-4847. You can reach us here at Sports Talk. Again, we've got Bill Shanks. He's also a Georgia Bulldogs writer, Josh.
Yeah.
So you can hold your nose while he talks about Georgia. When you're bragging on Florida and what they're going to do this year, we'll get the other side of that argument coming up at about 6:35 from Bill Shanks. Here we go. Let's get into our news notes tonight. We do have some details on the Clemson ACC settlement. These come to us from the state newspaper. Chapel Fowler did a tremendous job here. the state has obtained the settlement agreement between Clemson and the ACC. This was a court case, of course, we were covering throughout last year. And I'm surprised. I thought this was going to be a divorce. I said on this very show, I thought this was irreconcilable. But for the time being, Clemson and the ACC found themselves on the same page. And make no mistake, no matter what the ACC is saying publicly, this was a victory for Clemson, and in all probability for Florida State, North Carolina, and just the biggest brands of the ACC. So we'll take you through it briefly here. The settlement will not close the door on the conference down the road, but it absolutely serves to delay it while the ACC pursues new media rights deals with its partners in the coming year. So in other words, the ACC is going to try to find a way to get more money, make the pie bigger, so they can keep programs like Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and others that obviously would be courted by the Big Ten, the SEC, etc. Keep them in-house in the ACC, but you'll need more money in order to do that eventually. The current deal won't get it done. Now, the year you want to keep in mind is 2030, which is when a lot of the conference deals expire. That's when the college football playoff deal expires, the Big 12 deal expires, the Big 10 deal expires. The exit fee is going to drop precipitously down to $75 million. First year, it's $169 million. That's why we say, okay, so Clemson, Florida State, not going anywhere yet, but they could as the money gets bigger out there on the media side. And, of course, you're going to need money for all of these athletes. As the money gets bigger out there and the conference gets bigger at conferences, the exit fee gets smaller for the ACC. So the ACC is on the clock, essentially, to keep its big brands happy. So here are the 4 amendments. Here's what's changing. The ACC sharing is no longer going to be equally distributed. We knew that. That was the headline when the court case was settled. But it's going to break down like this. We have more detail than we've ever had before, again, courtesy of Chappell Fowler at the state. The conference will distribute 40% of multimedia revenue equally. So 40% goes out equally. So everybody, Boston College, Syracuse, everybody, they're all going to get 40%. They'll split 40% up equally. Then the remaining 60%, 75% of the money will be allocated based on football viewership. So if more eyeballs are on Clemson, Florida State, even Miami, I keep bringing up North Carolina, with Bill Belichick, 75% of the money will be allocated based on football viewership. More eyeballs on your games means a bigger slice of the pie. 25% of the money will be allocated based on men's basketball viewership. Hello Duke, hello North Carolina, hello Syracuse, hello Louisville. Additionally, an ACC member shall receive no less than $4 million for making the 12-team college football playoff, an additional $4 million if they make the quarterfinals, $6 million for the semifinals, $6 million for making the national championship. Attorney David McKenzie told the state Clemson has secured unprecedented flexibility while maintaining current benefits, adding that the settlement, quote, effectively converts ACC membership from a binding obligation to an annual economic decision, especially after 2030. That's my own edit. And here's why I wanted to put a pin in your thoughts, Josh. You said Florida's got plenty of money to compete. How different is it? You tell everybody every night you are a big Florida Gators fan. How different is it as you view this from being in the SEC? Because that is all equal. It has always been equally distributed. I'm not saying the power is. There are plenty that would argue that Georgia and Alabama have swung a bigger hammer than most throughout the years. I think there's evidence for that. But as a fan, you've always believed Florida was getting its fair share, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. Ever since the winning of the 2 national championships back in the early 2000s, or I guess late 2000s, I feel like and probably before then. I mean, I'm a young guy, obviously, so I wasn't around way back then. But listen, they've always had the respect in the conference. I think over the past, 8 years, they've kind of lost it, but they still have the money. They just did they're putting together a contract for next year to redo 90% of the stadium. Not 90. They're redoing portions of the stadium, and it's going to end up, I forget what the exact numbers are, but I believe that they are increasing the stadium. I know that they're increasing the performance of the stadium and like the loudness and whatever. So what that says to me is that they have plenty of money. If they are doing that, excuse me, they have the money for it. I don't think they've ever been stooped on the money. I think they always have had the viewership. I think that's another big thing.
Yeah, and the SEC is split equally, but in the ACC, Clemson and Florida State just felt like they were carrying too much water, and the ACC wanted to be like the SEC and just split it up equally. But Clemson and Florida State, they were going to bolt, and in my opinion, I think North Carolina likely would have bolted as well if they would have lost Clemson and Florida State.
I mean, I think what they were thinking was right. Were they not carrying the water for everybody in the conference?
In football, yes.
Yeah.
And especially Clemson being as consistently good as they have been, they absolutely and this really changed. We could go back through the history of this, but that first round of realignment was all about snagging television territory. And I said at the time I thought that was a mistake. So I was saying I was certainly wrong about Clemson bolting the ACC. I thought they would, and now they're not going to. I was right, however many years ago, the first round of realignment, when the ACC courted teams like Boston College and Syracuse. Syracuse does not bring you the New York City market. I don't know. Maybe Notre Dame brings you the New York City market in terms of college football viewership. It's just not that way. Boston College doesn't bring you the Massachusetts, the Boston, the New England market. There isn't a big market for college football up that way. I thought the ACC made terrible miscalculations in the first round of realignment, and ever since then, their power and influence has eroded little by little, to the point where Clemson and Florida State, as you said, were carrying the water for the ACC, especially from a national brand perspective. And now it has come back to really hurt them, and the ACC finds itself in a bad position. But here's what we can say. It's all okay right now. Everyone's on the same page. But this is what led to the breakup of the Big 12. If you remember why the Big 12 broke up, it was because Texas was allowed to keep its own revenue. I believe Oklahoma was as well. They were not splitting the pie evenly. Texas and Oklahoma were getting a larger slice of the pie. You can't exist like that forever. And that's why I bring that up. I think the ACC is in a bad position here in 2030. Not in 2025, 2026, all that's fine. I think Clemson and Florida State are going to stick it out, but let's revisit this. I think we will revisit this in 2030. All right, listen, we don't have time to get to all the notes right now. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. Good time for you to jump on, 888-898-525. But we've got some other notes coming up. The Hornets going to be in Charleston. That's pretty cool. All-star starters were announced last night. Ronald Acuna Jr., no suspense here. He made it. And we've got the John Deere leaderboard coming up. Some golf notables. Stay with us. This is Sports Talk.
I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. Whether it's becoming a teacher, dentist, or engineer, every child deserves the chance to chase their dreams. Investing in a child's education with Future Scholar, South Carolina's 529 College Savings Plan, can help turn those big dreams into next steps. So don't wait. You can start with any amount. Contributions are tax deductible and earnings grow tax-free. Discover the smart, easy way to save for college at futurescholar.com.
There's a lot of things we take for granted in our lives. Your home's AC will run cool. Your drive-through coffee will be hot. And the car will start when it's time to take your kids to school. It's when things don't go as planned that you start thinking about who to call and where to turn. The good thing is, you can prepare for life's most difficult days by calling the Larry Lucas Agency today. Larry is a State Farm agent that has been taking care of people across South Carolina for more than 2 decades. You probably have insurance, but switching is easy, and bundling can save you hundreds or more. Most importantly, the Larry Lucas Agency can help you choose the protection you want at the price you want. All backed by South Carolina's #1 home and auto insurance company. Visit LarryLucasAgency.com today or give Larry a call at 803-799-1998. Like a good neighbor, Larry Lucas State Farm is there.
Glad you're with us here on Sports Talk. Matt Smith, Josh Cohen here with you. Phil and Chris are away. Spoke to Phil Kornblut. He is just fine. I checked on him, wanted to make sure he was safe. Out among his people. He is taking a spiritual sabbatical, as I told you, to the Great Northwest. Phil only had one thing to say to me.
Where's the recruiting report?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, not surprised.
We've got it coming up in hour number 2. Hey, want to mention the All-Star starters were named last night for the game that's going to take place at Truist Park in Atlanta. And despite just playing in 36 games, Ronald Acuna Jr. was chosen to start in the outfield for the National League. This is a real feather in Acuna's cap. Only Acuna and Joe DiMaggio have started an All-Star game after missing more than 50 games before the break. Just 2. History of baseball. Acuna, Joe DiMaggio. Pretty cool. And Acuna, I think you could argue that it's well-deserved for as well as he has played since returning. What has really been sour for Braves fans is his performance has been lost somewhat. The Braves had lost 5 of 6 going into last night's game. They did win last night, knocked off the Angels 8-3. Grand slam for Matt Olson in that one, and Jurickson Profar also went deep, got a couple of hits and went deep in that one. So finally, the Braves kind of have their lineup back together, but as we mentioned in the open, they've lost Schwellen back for an extended period of time. Maybe he's back for September. Maybe. Also, want to mention the John Deere leaderboard. This is another thing that we want to make sure we get you up to date on golf, especially the local players. And the John Deere Classic is happening right now, and there are a lot of players still out on the course in the first round, but Doug Gim is in with, how about this, a 62, 9 under 62, and so it's a par 71, and Gim is atop the leaderboard, just a stroke ahead of Austin Eckroat and Max Homa, who are both in at 63, 8 under. Some notable local players, Carson Young is 4 under par through 17, so he's going to come in certainly in contention with 1 hole to play. Kevin Kisner is in with a 71. Matt Neesmith still out on the course at 13 at hole number 13, and he's +1. And Trace Crow is through 12 holes, and he is 2 over par. But judging by the way some of these players, we have, I'm just telling you, more than 50 players came in under par. So you're going to have to get under par, it looks like, to compete and make the cut after 2 rounds. But we'll get you up to date on that in the John Deere Classic. Also, the BMW International is happening, and Wesley Bryan and George Bryan IV are both competing in that one. And Wesley Bryan was 2 under. I'm looking for him now. Maybe he moved down. May have given back a stroke. No, he's tied for 24th, and he is off the course in Germany. 2 under par is Wesley Bryan, and the leader at the. It's 5 players tied atop the leaderboard after 1 round at 5 under par. So Wesley Bryan is absolutely in contention out there on the other side of the world, which is why we won't have George Bryan joining us tonight. We're going to give him a little time off. Our rule is if you go to Europe, you get the night off.
Well, that's your rule. Phil's rule. Phil wanted him on. The plan was for him to be on, but then Phil's not here, so we decided, no, just give him the week off.
I know.
And it'd be 3 o'clock in the morning by the time we had him on. So I feel bad making him come up. You know, he probably has to get up super early for the next round or whatever. So
yes, I agree with you. I agree. Yes, you're right. That is my rule. It's my rule that if you are in West Germany somewhere on the other side of the world, if you're anywhere outside if you're part of like the Euro block, okay, all the way over to Croatia, we're going to give you the night off. That's just a hard and fast rule that I've got.
He can recap next week.
He can recap next week after we give him a little time to get the jet lag out of his way. And I really hope Wesley plays well. George Bryan IV is also in the tournament, and I'll look him up coming up in hour number 2. We'll recap. We'll update the BMW International board and also the John Deere Classic Coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the Braves and also some Georgia football. We always slide in a Georgia football question when we have access to Bill Shanks, host of the Bill Shanks Show, and he's broadcast all over the state of Georgia, centered there in Macon. He loves Macon. I do not. I don't ever bring that up. We're not going to bring up Macon. I once spent a week one night in Macon, Georgia. Can't do it, but he loves it and does a great job covering the Braves and the Georgia Bulldogs. So we'll talk to Bill Shanks coming up in our next segment. Reminder about, now this is paradise. To me, Macon, Georgia, not paradise. Far from it. Paradise, Pawleys Island in the summertime. When you get the breeze going, 6:30 at night, maybe some oysters on the half shell, it's the place to be. Go to PawleysVacationRentals.com. Pawleys Island is the place. Jimmy Smith is the man. Jimmy is so good to everybody. Call Jimmy today. That's the James W. Smith Real Estate Company, 843-237-4246. That's 843-237-4246 for your perfect beach getaway. Trust me. And plus, you want to visit Jimmy's office. Got pictures of Lou Holtz-up, old helmets, Packers, Gamecocks, Tigers. He's seen it all. Give Jimmy a call, 843-237-4246. All right, Braves talk when we come back. Bill Shanks joins Sports Talk when we return. Stay with us.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Some passing clouds overnight with a low temperature dipping down to 73. Tomorrow, very nice for the 4th with sunshine-filled skies, a high climbing to 94. For the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, highs around 90. To go with a blend of sunshine and clouds, we have that usual 20% chance of an afternoon downpour. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
Hey y'all, it's Ted from Flight Deck Restaurant. We're introducing our new healthy gluten-free menu. For your choices, we offer charbroiled certified Angus ribeye steak, juicy marinated grilled chicken dinner, fresh grilled salmon, authentic Greek salad, hamburger steak with grilled onions and melted cheese, shish kebab with grilled chicken, veggie blue plate with a choice of 4 vegetable selections, spring chicken salad, and of course, our famous slow-roasted pot roast. Come and enjoy a healthy gluten-free menu at Flight Deck Restaurant. We at Flight Deck Restaurant thank you, and God bless.
Year-old box. With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Republicans in Congress have muscled President Donald Trump's tax and spending bill to passage. At nearly 900 pages, the legislation is a sprawling collection of tax breaks, spending cuts, and other Republican priorities, including new money for national defense and deportations. The House approved the bill on Thursday, the final step necessary to get the bill to Trump's desk by the GOP's self-imposed deadline of July 4th. Federal officials say famed Mexican boxer Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. has been arrested and will be deported to Mexico, where he faces organized crime charges. The 39-year-old boxer was arrested Wednesday in Studio City, California. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 344 points. More details at srnnews.com.
Hey, this is Kev with my good friend Ken from over at Broker Solar, and he really is a good friend. I've known Ken's family for more than 20 years. All right, so how many people lost power for an extended time back when we had that hurricane come through here, right? You got the solution, though, Ken, the solar-powered batteries.
The battery with solar system is essential. Not only can you back up your loads in an emergency event like a power outage, but you can also control the peak times that you use power, and the batteries can kick in to supplement your power usage. With our solar batteries, you can back up the home just like a generator would, but run it off the clean energy from the sun, which we get every single day. So no need to refill the gas, propane tanks, all powered by the sun.
Remember, Broker Solar is local. You make the call, the investment is worth it. How do the Point listeners find you over at Broker Solar, Ken?
The best way is going to be through brokersolar.com. Plenty of contact us buttons, but the phone number to reach us at would be 803-807-7417.
Escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life with Spa MD, your sanctuary of rejuvenation. Feel the tension melt away as our expert team guides you through your customized wellness journey. From soothing massages to revitalizing treatments, we promise a remarkable experience that leaves you feeling renewed and empowered. Discover the calm within every visit. Reach out at 251-9400 or online at visitspamd.com to explore your options. Your oasis of tranquility awaits.
It's painting season in the Midlands, and Southern Palmetto Painting and Renovation sets the tone for inspired living. Watch your home change from ordinary to outstanding with colors that liven every wall and craftsmanship you can trust. Michael and his team are fully licensed, bonded, and insured. They care for every detail inside and out of your home. Let's give your home the style and care it deserves. Call 922-5615. Southern Palmetto Painting and Renovations, where every project reflects pride.
Life is not a straight line. No matter how hard you try to stick to the path, sometimes you have to take a detour. Miss a turn or maybe even start over. Relax, we get it. Life happens, and your credit score shouldn't define your future. That's why Founders offers opportunity so you can pursue your financial goals. Not just for people with perfect credit scores, but for real people with real stories. At Founders, we know how to look beyond the credit score by listening, understanding, and believing in people and second chances. Because here, you're more than a number. You're a parent, a student, a dreamer, a doer whose story is still being written. When you're ready to pursue your next financial goal, stop by a Founders Federal Credit Union near you or visit foundersfcu.com/loans to see how we can build your next chapter together. Terms and conditions apply. Membership qualification required. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Cause we'll put a boot in your ass, it's the American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list, and the Statue of Liberty started shaking her fist, and the eagle will fly, and it's gonna be hell when you hear Mother Freedom.
Welcome back to Sports Talk. There you go. That's our producer, Jazzy Josh Cohen, with the late Toby Keith's Angry Anthem. A happy 4th of July to everyone. That's the most patriotic song, I guess, Josh could find there. As promised, we're going to talk Atlanta Braves. Bill Shanks joining us from the Bill Shanks Show. He's authored books on the Atlanta Braves, the way they built their championships in the 90s. Scouts Honor, you can find that online. Bill Shanks, Scouts Honor. And I always know Bill comes locked and loaded with opinions, especially about the Atlanta Braves. Bill, welcome back, man.
It's a pleasure to be on with you. How are you?
I am good, Bill. Well, I'm you know how I am. Clayton Kershaw put his name in the history books last night with his 3,000th strikeout. You know I'm in a good mood.
I'm sorry, who was that?
All right, we'll talk Braves. Listen, there's good news and there's bad news with the Atlanta Braves right now. Let's go ahead and get the bad news out of the way. Spencer Schwellenbach goes down, fractured elbow. It's really kind of an ugly story, too. That's the 4th Braves starter to go down for an extended period. So we can do small picture, big picture, but one of the things I wanted to hear from you, Bill, is, we joke about it, but I'm a Dodgers fan. The Dodgers pitchers drop like flies. Is it, you studied for baseball, is it this emphasis on spin rate and the way that they're being utilized? Is there anything to it why certain organizations, and the Braves are one of them right now, that really struggles keeping pitchers healthy?
Well, it is an epidemic. I wrote a column the other day about it, and then a separate column on how the Braves have been impacted by injuries. And then a couple of days later, we find out that Sale's out for 2 months, and Schwellenbach, I don't think he's coming back this year. I mean, I may be wrong, but I'm not very optimistic. And it is an epidemic. I mean, there's just no question about it. I think beyond spin rate, I think it's more about velocity. And I'm not saying spin rate is not a part of the equation, but you look at how pitching has changed. And I know I sound like an old man on the front porch with a shotgun in my hand when I say this, but I mean, pitching's different than it used to be. We have We have more elbow injuries. We don't have the shoulder injuries that we saw back 30, 40 years ago. And it seemed like every week there is some sort of injury. I mean, the last 6 weeks has been awful. I don't have the list in front of me, but you could Google Tommy John surgeries in the last 6 weeks, and it's just extensive. Every time you turn around, and you're right, the Dodgers, they don't want to hear anything about the brace issues because they've had their own trouble, and it's been significant. So I think it's the increased reliance and dependence on velocity more than anything, and just the fact that, I had a GM 11 years ago, 2014, the Braves had 2 pitchers go down within 72 hours in spring training with Tommy John elbow issues. And the GM at the time, the Braves, told me when I asked him about it, he said, I think they're damaged goods by the time we get them. That tells you a lot, right?
Right, because of what you have to do. You want to register as highly as you can on the radar gun so that you can get to the big leagues. Then you want to get paid, and then after that, only after that, perhaps after one Tommy John surgery, can you really think about then protecting yourself at all.
Well, I said on my show earlier today, I said, you think about it. How do you get on a high school baseball team? Well, I can pitch. Well, how hard can you pitch? Well, I can pitch fast. Okay, you got it. Do you want a college scholarship? Well, how hard can you throw? Oh, I can throw 92. Oh, okay, we'll put you on our college team. Oh, I want to get drafted. Well, how hard do you, I mean, the trend does not stop going up the ladder from junior high to the big leagues. The faster you pitch in the big leagues, the more they're going to look at you. But the dependence on velocity has, in my opinion, created horrific deliveries by pitchers. You look at pitchers now and you see the leg action, the whip, the violence of the deliveries that pitchers have now because they're trying to throw hard. And they know the harder they throw, if they can command it, right, the better they'll be on the radar. But it's caused pitchers to do things, I think, and pitching's not a normal thing anyway, but it's caused pitchers to do even more unnatural things to their arm through their deliveries that has opened up the Pandora's box for problems. And I don't think there's a way to stop it. I think the Braves' first 4 starter pitchers for this season in the San Diego series to start the year, Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez, Spencer Schwellenbach, and A.J. Smith-Shawver are all 4 out. I don't know if Smith-Shawver's out for the year. I don't know if any of those other 3 are coming back. They may come back in September. I don't know where they're going to come back to, but there's no guarantee. And it's just one injury after the other that is really harming the game, in my opinion.
I would agree. And don't forget about Spencer Strider, who's healthy now but hasn't been.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so if those guys aren't coming back, that's really interesting. The Braves are only 6.5 out of the wild card spot. So from your perspective, I think the Schwellenbach injury may change their thinking. Are the Braves any kind of sellers? Do they stand pat? Do they actually try to replace some of these arms at the deadline? How do you see what the management may be thinking now?
2 weeks ago, Alex Anthopoulos was on 6A The Fan in Atlanta and said, absolutely not. I'm not selling. No. Caps, bold letters, italics, whatever you want to use. But he did have a little bit of a caveat at the end that unless something happened and it was extreme, well, I don't know how much more extreme you can get than this right here. It is extreme. You have Spencer Strider, Grant Holmes, and now Bryce Elder as your 3 starting pitchers. Didier Fuentes is the 4th starting pitcher. He has no business in the big leagues. He's 20 years old. He needs to go back to Double-A. And I don't know what they're going to do about the 5th starting pitcher. They said earlier today it may be a bullpen game on Saturday. That's a dumpster fire. So I don't know how they're going to survive these next couple of weeks to try to prove that they can still stay in the race. But here's the thing. If by some chance in the next 10 games they went up to where going into the All-Star break they're less than 5 games out of the wild card, he's not going to sell because his ego is going to want to keep him there. And, look, I understand that. He's been the GM now. This is his 8th year. The first 6 years were division championships. Last year was a playoff berth that they had no business being in, but they did anyway. So it's going to be awfully hard for him to throw the flag out there and say we're done. I just don't know how, Smitty, they're going to be able to survive with these issues in the pitching staff. As you said, Strider is coming back from the issue. We don't know how strong he's going to be toward the end of the year coming back from this. Holmes has never done this in his life. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. And Bryce Elder is probably your second best pitcher in Double-A, and he's your number 3 starter now. So they've got a mess on their hands to try to survive this with their starting rotation in shambles.
Yeah, Bill Shanks joining us from the Bill Shanks Show. You can find out everything you need to know in terms of keeping up with Bill and the Bulldogs and the Braves and more at thesuperstations.com. The Bill Shanks Show broadcast all over Georgia. But if you're a Braves fan in South Carolina, he's a great resource. And so we're so glad to have you, Bill. All right, some good news. Ronald Acuna Jr. joins Joe DiMaggio. Only 2 players in history now have missed their more than 50 games before the break and still started in the All-Star game. And Acuna has been very, very good since he came back. And now Jurickson Profar comes back from his PED suspension. So I guess the good news is finally you have the outfield that everybody talked about in the offseason, Harris, Acuna, and Profar finally playing together.
You do, but Harris is awful at the plate. I wish that Harris and Ozzie Albies could find some stuff that Profar was taking, and either they get called and they have to stop playing, or they at least can get some hits with what that they can take, because they've been awful. But yeah, it's good to have Profar back. I mean, look, I think everybody, because of what the offense has gone through, has to kind of bite their tongue and hold their nose and let him back out there and pray to God that he can really help this team, because they need him. I mean, they desperately need help. The left field position without him was awful. And then you got Harris, offensively awful. Ozzie Albies has been awful. Nick Allen is an elite defender like Harris is, but he can't hit. He's not a great hitter. And the bad thing for Nick Allen is it wouldn't be that big of a deal if this was a normal lineup. You could almost sacrifice one spot in your batting order for elite defense at shortstop, but it's hard to ignore him when he's 1 of 4. It's been inconsistency from the catcher spot. I mean, there's no question Baldwin's been very good, and Murphy at times, but also at times they've kind of struggled. So, yeah, they've got to, Profar needs to help them. He does. And I would love nothing more than for us to look back on last night's game and say, well, it all changed on July 2nd when Profar came back. And the bad thing is, I was saying that going into yesterday, and then all of a sudden you get the Schwellenbach news, and they're going to take one step back, or they're going to take one step forward tonight with Profar coming back, and then boom, they have to announce that Schwellenbach's broke a bone in his elbow, and it's like, well, they're taking 2 steps back now, and it's like that's what's been the entire story of this team for the last year and a half, really.
Bill, you also do a great job staying on top of the Georgia Bulldogs, and I'd be curious, what is the sentiment now for Georgia? It's because, honestly, in the last 5-6 years, I was just looking at their record, losing 3 games last year. That's the first time that's happened to Georgia since 2018. That was a down year, finishing sixth in the final poll. Heading into this year, what's the comfort level that this is another championship team for Kirby Smart?
Well, obviously, they've got a new quarterback coming in, and anytime you have a new quarterback coming in, just like they did 2 years ago when Carson Beck took over for Stetson Bennett, you have question marks. And I think, Smitty, you look at most of the teams around the country, those that are have returning quarterbacks like Clemson and South Carolina, for example, are going to be thought of more highly than a team like a Georgia and Alabama, perhaps, who have to figure out their quarterback situations. We have to see what Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson can do, for example. So they've got to obviously answer that. But I have a lot of confidence in Gunnar Stockton. I'm very excited to see him play. I think he's going to have a better group of receivers around him than Carson Beck did last year. I think the running back room is going to be deeper. I'm not buying what Cole Kubelik's saying about the Georgia offensive line being the best in the SEC. I've got to see that to believe it, but I think it could be improved from last year. But they've got so much better receivers. They had a real hard time holding on to the ball last year. They dropped a lot of passes, and that can't happen this year. And I think, they brought in Noah Thomas from A&M, a big, tall kid. They got one of their kids back who's a big, tall kid, so they've got some taller targets I think could help Gunner a lot. So that's the big thing is what's going to happen with the new quarterback, and everybody I think is excited to see what he can do.
But you expect this to be a playoff team, right? So like it's more like the other sports now in that how healthy will they be in December, right?
Oh, yeah, it's playoff or bust. Kirby Smart's out if he doesn't get to the playoff. We're not taking any crap for nothing. We're not backing up. We're not going back to Mark Richt days now, Smitty. You know that. I'm not taking that at all. I can't take that. No. Look, I think Kirby seriously has gotten this program to a point where you have to have that as the expectation. The talent is there. You know, there are some questions, obviously, like I said, with the quarterback that you've got to answer, but I think, 1 through, what it used to be 1 through 85. I don't know what the heck the number is now. 1 through 1 million, whatever the roster size is, it's talented. It's a real talented roster. And so, yeah, I think they can be a playoff team, and I think they can be one of the best teams in the conference. And I'm glad that Texas is getting all the love. I mean, I think it's great that bald sports commentators are giving a lot of love to quarterback who couldn't even beat out Quinn Ewers last year. I think that's excellent.
Oh, great as always, Bill. I really appreciate it. I'll leave you with this. Clayton Kershaw, 2.52 career ERA. That's the best ERA of a pitcher with 3,000 strikeouts since Walter Johnson. I think you should lead your show with that tomorrow when you come on.
Man, I saw that sucker in Double-A with the Jacksonville Suns. Whatever year that was, he was in Double-A. And I'm like, oh, my God, what have I just seen? And then he came and sat in the stands. It was a doubleheader. He came and sat in the stands after the game and with his family. And I'm like, that's the widest bodied human being I've ever seen, because to fit him into a suit, you got to get two measuring things. But he's an outstanding pitcher. I just hate that he's with the team that the devil roots for, Smitty. It just burns me up bad.
Well, here's our connection. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Clayton Kershaw played football with Matt Stafford in high school. So
he sure did. Yep.
There you go.
That's our connection. Stafford carried him like always, like the Bulldog always does. Stafford carried him. What are you going to do?
Oh, wonderful. All right, thesuperstations.com. If you're a Braves fan, if you're a Bulldogs fan, check it out, and then you can get to Bill and all that he does. And actually, and Jeff Dantzler, too, and everything you guys do. It's really good, and I always check in with you. Bill, thank you, and we'll check in later.
It's great to talk to you as always, Smitty. Take care.
Thank you. Bill Shanks. I told you he was going to bring strong opinions, and he's right about the Braves pitching. How do you get out of this? There just isn't enough arms. We'll take another break. We're going to line up some phone calls with you, 888-898-2525. Also, got the text line ready and waiting, 803-900-4847. What do you think about the details that are leaking out about Clemson and the ACC? Is the ACC going to stay together after 2030? Put your predictions in now. We'll get a prophecy from Phil Kornblut from the Great Northwest. We'll get that on the text line. This is Sports Talk.
Traveling can be the worst, especially when you can't find your favorite show. Well, don't worry. We've got the perfect way to keep up with everything happening in the Palmetto State when you're away from home. Just pull up the Chief Sports app on your mobile device, and you can listen live to Sports Talk.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network.
So the next time you can't find us on one of our great radio affiliates, just log on to the Chief Sports app, the best way to stay connected with the Sports Talk Media Network.
This is Major Billy Downer with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Boating season is here, and as you get ready to go out on the water this spring and summer, make sure you have all the required safety equipment on board. Check for a sound device. A horn or whistle will suffice for most boats. Inspect all of your life jackets. Make sure they're in good condition and are the correct size for all of your passengers. If your boat is over 16 feet, you will need to make sure you have an approved throwable device on board as well. Remember, boating safety is no accident.
Get ready for a summer of adventure with Founders Federal Credit Union. Now through July 31st, take advantage of the 6.99% APR on select purchases made with your Founders credit card. Make your plans happen without breaking your budget. Whether it's a road trip, a beach getaway, or a bucket list destination, Visit foundersfcu.com/cc for more information. Promotional rate ends February 1st, 2026. Effective APR of 13.25% to 17.90% will apply. Terms and conditions apply. Membership qualification required.
And we're back on Sports Talk. Smitty and Josh here with you. Phil and Chris are out, but Chris will return next week. Phil's sabbatical will be extended for another week, but we hope everybody has a great 4th of July. You know, we may have a moment here, Josh, that I'm going to slide in the recruiting report.
Let's do it.
Let's take care of that. It's brought to you by Seawells, and as Josh told you last night, Seawells is going to be closed until July 8th. So we hope everybody at the Seawells, that's part of the Seawells family over there, enjoys their 4th of July weekend. SeawellsCateringSC.com is where you can check in with Seawells for their menu options. You can do that coming up after the 8th. Here's a big note out of the recruiting report. And so this is a day after South Carolina landed a commitment from Noah Clark. South Carolina tight ends coach Sean Elliott has extended an offer to cross tight end Caden Ramsey. Ramsey, 6'5", 210 pounds. Ramsey said it felt good, meaning to get the offer. I was waiting on it for a minute. It came late, but it felt great. Glad to have it. This is the tight end we were talking about that South Carolina has offered from the Low Country there at Cross High School. Ramsey said he, meaning Coach Elliott, came to the school a couple of times to see me. I thought I was going to get it, but not that fast. You got to show a little bit of work in front of the coaches. I went down to South Carolina for a camp, had a session with Coach Elliott. They recorded me, did a bunch of workout things. He called me a few days later, and I got the offer. How badly did Ramsey want to impress Elliott in that camp session? He worked through a hamstring injury and the flu to show him his stuff. Ramsey said, I had to go out there, try my best. Just put God first. Probably my footwork and my hands impressed Coach Elliott the most. Ramsey also visited with the Gamecocks earlier this year for a junior day. He was in for a visit last year as well. Ramsey had also received offers from Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Charlotte, and Coastal Carolina. Currently, Ramsey has the Gamecocks as his top school. Ramsey said, I put them at number 1 right now. It's in-state, home, they're nice. Been there a couple of times, feels like family there. South Carolina is definitely number 1 right now. I'm going to try to get an official visit to South Carolina next month. Ramsey was a two-way player last year in high school. We don't know what's going to happen this year at Cross High School, but played both receiver and free safety last year. Caught 46 balls for 749 yards and 9 touchdowns, so absolutely getting it done on the offensive side. And how about this number? As a free safety, Ramsey had 14 interceptions. That is a big, big number in a high school season. So there you go. There is your recruiting report. We actually have some other recruiting notes, but we'll slide those in coming up in hour number 2. It's brought to you by Seawells. When planning that special event, whether it be a wedding reception, birthday party, corporate outing, awards banquet, or business luncheon, call the catering experts at Seawells. They've been serving the Columbia area with excellent food and service for over 70 years. The Seawells family and staff can handle all your planning and catering needs at their facility, 1125 Rosewood Drive, or come to your venue. Visit SeawellsCateringSC.com for menu options or give them a call. 803-771-7385. Josh, were you grinding your teeth listening to Bill brag on the Georgia Bulldogs in that last segment?
Well, you know, I didn't really have my obviously, we didn't have our cameras on if you were watching, though. I'm not sure if you can see my camera. We had an overlay on. Anyways, I was on my phone for the entire thing, and I wasn't really paying attention.
Oh, you were trying to ignore the Georgia talk, Georgia noise.
I absolutely was, and I probably won't listen to it. Even when I'm editing the show afterwards, I won't be paying attention.
How about this? To me, this is foreign. I'm asking Bill some questions, and we're talking about Georgia, what they might be like this year. And their schedule is not that bad at the tail end. It really depends on what you think of Georgia Tech. And Georgia kind of gets a soft opening as well. But through the middle, there's some difficult games, including Alabama. We don't know what Auburn's going to be. Ole Miss, you expect them to be pretty good. Florida's obviously talented. And what I was thinking was I had to scan back over. But if you're a person of my age, 40s, 50s, or Phil's age, a little bit older, it's just hard to believe there's no South Carolina-Georgia game or Clemson-Georgia game.
There's no South Carolina-Florida game.
No South Carolina-Florida game. That's just it's one of those things you have to look twice at the schedule. And I know what's happened, and I know they've shuffled the schedules around. There's no more divisions, but it's just the way college football has shifted over the years. But there are certain games. College football has to be careful. College football has to be very careful here, and we'll take your calls at this. Happy to take your calls on this. 888-898-2525. You have to. What made college football so great? It was not the playoff. College football was popular before the playoff. It really wasn't the bowls because sometimes the bowls didn't mean that much. Rivalries. Mm-hmm. College football was built on rivalries. Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State. Notre Dame playing Michigan State, Notre Dame playing Michigan. South Carolina and Clemson, Auburn and Alabama. The game. Harvard, Yale. Stanford and Cal. Southern Cal, UCLA, both wearing their home uniforms. You have to be very careful because, and this is what I was talking about, this is part and parcel of what I was talking about in the first hour when I said that the ACC made a misstep when they went as far north as they did. There's no juice when Syracuse plays Georgia Tech. The juice is when Georgia plays Clemson. Georgia plays South Carolina. South Carolina plays Florida. Be careful. Don't want to lose that. Hour 2 coming up.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. House Republicans have approved President Trump's massive so-called Big Beautiful Bill and sent it to the White House for his signature. President Trump is applauding the House passage of his Big Beautiful Bill.
Point after point, biggest tax cut in history, great for security, great on the southern border, immigration is covered. We covered just about everything. Again, it's the biggest bill ever signed of its kind.
The passage of the 800-plus page Big Beautiful Bill will likely become a defining milestone of Trump's return to the White House, and it's indicative of the power conservatives wield in this majority Republican Congress. There's been a shooting outside a crowded Chicago night spot. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
Police say 4 people died in a drive-by shooting in Chicago's River North neighborhood. The dead included 2 men and 2 women. 14 others were hospitalized. The shooting happened late Wednesday as people were leaving after a release party for Chicago rapper Mellow Bucks. Street pastor Donovan Price said there was mayhem and confusion at the scene.
People wanting to find their other people, find who was alive, finding who was, where their phones were because they dropped them in the chaos.
Audio courtesy ABC 7 Chicago. I'm Jennifer King.
First Lady Melania Trump visited sick patients at Children's National Hospital in Washington as the children made 4th of July arts and crafts ahead of the holiday. Mrs. Trump, continuing a tradition of support by First Ladies for the Pediatric Care Center, also stopped by the hospital's rooftop healing garden, which she dedicated during the first Trump administration to First Ladies of the United States. On Wall Street, the Dow by 344 points, the Nasdaq rose 207. More at townhall.com.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks. Look at her and I said, the pain is gone. And she said, I'm glad it helped. I said, no, you don't understand. It's gone.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to relieffactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.95.
Now there's a new way to take charge of your blood sugar. Introducing new Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula from the makers of the nation's best-selling garlic supplement. New Garlic helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels with clinically supported levels of garlic, plus a custom blend of vitamins and minerals, and it's odor-free. Take charge of your blood sugar with new Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed.
Positive economic news results in a record-setting day on Wall Street. Correspondent Damian Troisi reports.
Stocks climbed further into record heights on Wall Street Thursday. The S&P 500 rose 0.8%. It set an all-time high for the fourth time in 5 days. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.8%. The Nasdaq Composite rose 1%. Treasury yields jumped. U.S. markets closed early on Thursday in advance of Independence Day. The gains followed a report showing that the U.S. job market looks stronger than Wall Street expected. The strong data on U.S. jobs pushed traders to pull back on forecasts that the Federal Reserve could cut its main interest rate later this month. Damian Troisi, New York.
The markets will be closed tomorrow in observance of the 4th of July holiday. News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Some passing clouds overnight with a low temperature dipping down to 73. Tomorrow, very nice for the 4th with sunshine-filled skies, a high climbing to 94. For the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, highs around 90. To go with a blend of sunshine and clouds, we have that usual 20% chance of an afternoon downpour. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. This is The Point. Make the point.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil and Chris with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Well, Phil and Chris's vacations continue. Matt Smith and Josh Cohen are here to bring you hour number 2 of Sports Talk, the final hour of Sports Talk this week before we get into the 4th of July holiday. Hope everybody has a great 4th of July. We've got Jeff Owens on deck circle. We'll get to Jeff in just a moment. We'll catch up on NASCAR and maybe other things. Jeff is a man of many parts. And we'd love to pick his brain about a number of things. I won't bring up the Braves. That's probably a sore subject right now after Schwellenbach's injury. But our top story tonight, details on the Clemson ACC settlement are out. Chapel Fowler at the State did a terrific job of detailing a lot of this. We went over a lot of this in the opening first few minutes. But bottom line, we've got the numbers now for the exit fees for any team in the ACC that wants to exit. And remember, keep this number in mind, 2030, this year in mind, 2030. That is when the college football playoff contract expires, the Big 12 media rights deal expires, and the Big 10 media deal expires. So right now, the buyout, if you want to leave the ACC, you'd owe the member conferences, member teams, $165 million at the end of next year. But that steps down to $93 million in 2029-30 and then to $75 million over each of the next 5 years. So cut more in half after 2030. That was a win in terms of negotiating for Clemson. The ACC bought itself some time to improve its media rights position. Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and other teams that would be highly sought after by other conferences. That's the number. they would owe if they want to leave in 2030 when other conferences could come calling. Let's talk NASCAR with Jeff Owens.
Love it when it's forward, love it when it's fast, love it when the lead is caught, the pack is moving past, love it when they make you lots and lots of noise, can't wait to hear these W's say. Boogity, 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 let's go racing, boys! Let's go racing, boys!
All right, yeah, let's go racing, boys. Hey, how about a street race in Chicago? That's what's up next for NASCAR. Jeff, welcome back to Sports Talk, and you and I haven't talked in a while, but I hope you are well, sir.
I'm doing great, Smitty. Great to be back on the air with you.
Absolutely. And you know what? I will do my best to not be negative at all because you know some of the shenanigans that NASCAR has done. I'm for some of them, but to me, the street race in Chicago was one that made me cock my head. I really hoped that it worked. I know they had they've had weather issues and all sorts of issues. Where were you when this was announced initially, and where does it stand? What's the NASCAR fans' reaction to the street race?
Well, I think, Matt, the first one was kind of a disaster because of the weather. But the concept, I think, NASCAR fans were a little iffy on. I think there was some excitement about the first one, going to Chicago for the street race. You know, that weekend didn't go so well. Last year was better. They put on a pretty good race. I think everything went pretty smoothly. I think it's a good idea. I don't like it being on July 4th weekend. I don't think that fits. I don't think that's NASCAR. I don't know that any NASCAR fan that I know thinks that's NASCAR. I think I would love to see them go back to Daytona like they did for so many years. But it is what it is. They've been trying a lot of new things with new tracks and new events over the past few years. From that standpoint, I think Chicago is a city that they need to be in. So I'm okay with the race there. We got back-to-back road course races now coming off of a great race in Atlanta. So we'll see. Hopefully it's a good race this weekend, and it, you know, I think it possibly could establish itself as a staple on the schedule. We'll see. They've talked about other street races. There's talk right now about one in San Diego. But I think this Chicago race needs to continue to have success. We'll see what kind of turnout this weekend and what kind of show they put on. And I think that'll tell us whether they keep doing this or not.
How big an advantage, with it being only 75 laps, it's like kind of a road course in a way. How big an advantage for the road course specialist is this street race?
Well, yeah, I think it is. I don't think there's any question about it. I think Van Ginsberg, the guy that dominated the last road course race in Mexico, I think he's the heavy favorite. He won the first one there or the second one there. He's been very, very good on all these road courses, but I think it's very similar, Matt. I don't think it's a little bit different because it's set up on a street and it's more flat. But I think still the braking and the footwork and the guys that are good on the road courses, they're going to shine on this kind of layout.
Also, the last 2 years, Jeff, one thing we've seen, except for a run that Christopher Bell had earlier this year. The last 2 years, I have been struck by just how many different drivers are taking checkered flags. It is just always a different name. It's been so hard for anyone to stay on top, which I think is a credit to what NASCAR was trying to do with the new car and a lot of the changes that they made. Where do you view it now, I guess, more than a year in terms of, last week was Elliott, week before that's Briscoe, and then you mentioned the road course specialist, Hamlin before that. So outside of that stretch Bell had, it's been a different driver every week. That's what NASCAR wanted, right?
Yeah, they were trying to create parity and create better racing. I think that was their ultimate goal. Bunch up the field, make it closer, give more teams and more cars an opportunity, and that will create better racing on the racetrack. That part of the equation, I think, has worked. I think there's no question that the races are better. They're more competitive. But, that's the byproduct of that. More teams have a chance to win, so more drivers are going to win races. I think that was really neat the first couple of years. I think it's sort of a personal preference, and I think you're going to get a very mixed bag among fans. But I do believe there is a portion of fans who kind of like the fact that there was always a lead dog. There was a guy, there was a Dale Earnhardt, there was a Jeff Gordon, there was a Kyle Busch, there was even Kyle Larson, a guy that dominated and checked out and everybody's chasing him, or you've got 3 or 4 guys that are winning 5 or 6 races and they've established themselves as the best this year. I think that's what fans like. I think right now it's a little bit too mixed up. Some of these guys win and you're like, okay, are they ever going to win again, or was that a fluke? I don't think it was a fluke, but sometimes too much parity is not a good thing. And I think we're kind of on that cliff right now.
That is very interesting. Jeff Owens joining us just ahead of the 4th of July weekend. It's not just the street race. Jeff, your relationship with me goes back years. I've interviewed you many times. You know that I always thought NASCAR had better be careful not to expand too much. But look at the month of July, and they do this every year now, the street race, then way out west of Sonoma, then Dover in Delaware, and then, of course, you've got the Brickyard in Indianapolis. So this is not the heart of – and then it's Iowa after that. So it's not the heart of NASCAR country in the summertime. Tell me, is that working? Because, this was a directive from NASCAR to expand the fan base, demographics, and that's not just about ethnicity or gender. That's also geographically they needed to expand that footprint. How's it going?
Yeah, I think they've done a pretty decent job of that. I mean, some places it's worked and some haven't. The jury's still out on Chicago, I think. Iowa is a place that it's worked. That is a great racetrack, and it's really been embraced by fans out there, and I think it's a favorite among the drivers. I think that's a great addition. Some of the others, we'll see. The summertime used to be, I remember this from my years at covering it, that fan interest has sort of wavered a little bit in the summertime because people are doing other things and stuff, but we would always take that jaunt up north. We would go to Pocono, and we would go to Michigan and some other places, and then, you might finish up at Indy or something like that. And now you're right. It's more spread out. It's to California and Iowa and all over the place. And I think that's what they're trying to do, is just broaden their footprint a little bit. I think it's working for the most part. I don't think it's getting the impact that they hoped it would, because you're not seeing a tremendous spike in attendance and TV ratings. You're seeing a little bit. So I think the jury's still out, but I think that's going to be their plan. I think they're going to continue to mix it up, and I think they're going to take this street race concept and they're going to move it around. Like I said, they're talking about San Diego now as maybe the next place they go. So I think we'll probably see a street race in Miami before too long. So I think they're going to continue to do that.
Something we haven't talked about in a while, I think this story kind of came up and it reared its head and then went back down, but it's so fascinating. I don't think the France family is giving up on having an ownership stake in a team, right? That's something that's still on the table, simmering beneath the surface. Have you heard anything about that recently?
Well, I think they tried to do that, and it got slapped down pretty quickly. And they got to be careful about that right now, because they're in court under a antitrust lawsuit right now, and that's kind of falls in the same category, conflict of interest. How can you have the family that runs NASCAR? They own the racetrack and they got a team in the field at the same time. Brian France told us one time, we were working on a story about him because he was in a situation where he owned part of NASCAR, his family owns it, but he's got a vested interest in numerous companies that are sponsoring cars in there. He's part of a marketing firm that's going out and getting sponsors and distributing through the sport. And, we asked him, how is that not a conflict of interest? And he said, well, everything in the sport's a conflict of interest. That's what we do. So, I don't think it's an issue to them, but I think from the last I heard, Jim France wanted to have a car in that race at Mexico because NASCAR also owns IMSA, which is a sports car racing series, and Jim France has teams in that series, and he wanted to enter a car in Mexico City, and the garage really pushed back about it. They said that's way out of bounds. He pulled back on that and decided not to do it. I don't think we're going to see that because I don't think the other teams and the drivers are going to allow them to get away with that.
The France family may not see it as a conflict of interest, but if there's a problem, who would they appeal to? You can't have you can't be the judge and the jury, right?
Right. Well, there's the problem. They are the judge and the jury, and they're the competition too. And they got their hands in so many pies that it's difficult to balance things and keep it objective. And that's why they're in court. They've been sued before, and this was a pretty serious thing, and it could, we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, there's always been this conflict with NASCAR, and right now they're in court about it. So we'll see how this gets settled.
All right, Jeff, we really appreciate you. I hope you have a great 4th. And look, I told you as you came on, I wasn't going to hit you over the head with Brave stuff. I just want to take your temperature. How frustrated are you with the Braves after yet another pitching injury?
Oh yeah, it's very frustrating because everyone knew that this was very likely to happen, and they did nothing about it during the off season. Chris Sale was great last year, but he's got such a history of injuries. You knew there was no way he was going to survive another season without an injury. Schwellenbach has never thrown that many innings before. You knew he was a risk. So they do nothing, and now they're paying for it. And I hate to say this, but I think they may not be done, but they're pretty cooked. And if they don't get it going quickly, the season's over. And yeah, that's disappointing. We're used to seeing that out of the Mets and people like that, but boy, the Braves are the team that's really struggling right now, so that's disappointing.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I was going to say you can cook out, enjoy your family, and look forward to football season if nothing else.
That's what I'm doing. Looking forward to football, and a lot of people around here have been excited about the Charlotte Hornets for a change with the draft and stuff like that. So, been a lot of talk about that in Charlotte, and of course, football season coming up. I was on campus in Columbia this week when my daughter, who is enrolling there this fall, and we got our season football tickets, so planning on being in Columbia a lot this year and looking forward to an exciting season.
Wonderful. All right, Jeff, enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for taking a little time with us. We doubly appreciate it on a holiday week, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, man. Have a great 4th, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Jeff Owens, he's the best. Always good to talk to him. Great perspective there. And it's laughable to me that the France family still wants to put a team in the field. And but it's why NASCAR is wholly unique. You don't talk about, remember, that family owns the NFL. This family owns Major League Baseball. You own franchises inside. You own teams. And even those are like groups of a dozen by try to get money together, pool money together, and buy a team. And the France family still throwing their weight around after all these years. And, again, that's what makes NASCAR so unique and so interesting.
Smitty, I was in Atlanta for the race. I'm not sure if you knew this.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, you were.
And I wish I got to talk about it with Jeff. I didn't really have much to say about it other than the fact that I snuck behind the pits during the race, right before the race started. I was in the pits as it started. And through the entire race, I sat right behind one of the teams, and it was really cool to see. That was my first NASCAR race, so it's very cool to see. If you want to break the law, I suppose you should go to a NASCAR game. Or race, I'm sorry.
Wow. Well, all right, you're out. Well, who's your driver? Who are you pulling for?
I think who won? Chase Elliott? I think
yes.
That's who I'm going to go for.
Great. Nice. Taking after Phil. What a front runner. Yeah. Great. All right, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we'll go over those details again about the agreement between Clemson and the ACC. Now, that settlement that Clemson was able to get with the ACC, don't forget, that goes forever. every team in the ACC. This impacts Florida State, North Carolina, Duke, NC State, and more. So we'll go over some of those details when we come back. We'll take your phone calls, 888-898-2525. It's Sports Talk on a short holiday week. Thanks for joining us.
Get ready for a summer of adventure with Founders Federal Credit Union. Now through July 31st, take advantage of the 6.99% APR on select purchases made with your Founders credit card. Make your plans happen without breaking your budget. Whether it's a road trip, a beach getaway, or a bucket list destination. Visit foundersfcu.com/cc for more information. Promotional rate ends February 1st, 2026. Effective APR of 13.25% to 17.90% will apply. Terms and conditions apply. Membership qualification required.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I'm not a case manager. I'm a lawyer for over 35 years. I don't charge 40% for your injury in your wreck case or any on-the-job injury. Call 803-765-2968 and ask for Jim Corbett or email me, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com, for the experience of a lawyer handling your injury case. Jim Corbett, 803-765-2968. Jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. Put 35 years of experience to work on your injury case.
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand education opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be a better player, one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
We were Jesus, save me, blue jean baby, born in the USA. Trailer park truck stop, faded little map dots, New York to LA. We were teenage dreaming front seat.
Yeah, back on Sports Talk, Smitty and Josh taking you into the holiday weekend. Remember, no Sports Talk tomorrow night. So we're in the back stretch here, the final 35 minutes of Sports Talk. Good time to get your thoughts in. One of the things that Josh and I were talking about was in the open was any amendment to your New Year's resolution. Yesterday marked the midpoint of the calendar year, and Josh only said that his entire resolution was wrapped up in seeing the Florida Gators.
I dedicate
my
life.
This year.
I dedicate my life to the Florida Gators.
Well, I hope it works out for you.
Well, although I will be going to USC next year, but I dedicate my everything athletic-wise.
Your allegiance,
my
right.
allegiance, right, to the University of Florida.
Okay. You're very dedicated, and that's good. We'll see if we get anybody else that wants to counter that with their own. Again, 888-898-2525, and our text line is 803-900-4847. Josh actually brought this up. He pointed out to me it might be a good idea to go over in more detail what Chappell Fowler and the state released earlier today about the Clemson ACC settlement. I can tell you, I think any objective observer would say this was a win for Clemson in terms of what they got back from the ACC. I also, in all probability, Florida State, North Carolina, and the big brands of the ACC will benefit from this. Teams, to me, like Boston College, Syracuse, they're not going to benefit from this because now the ACC is going to break up the money. 60% of the money is going to be distributed based on the eyeballs, the viewership. Now, we don't know exactly what metrics they're using, and I can tell you from having worked in the media, none of this is perfect, but the ratings will be out there, and ESPN and other groups will supply those metrics to the ACC, and then using that, 75% of the money will be allocated based on football viewership. So you can just guarantee, I mentioned Boston College, you can just guarantee there's not going to be as many eyeballs on Boston College football games as there will be on Clemson and Florida State games. And they're more valuable to ESPN, and so the teams like Florida State and Miami, if they're good, North Carolina with Bill Belichick and Clemson, and maybe Georgia Tech, based on their based on some of their fan base, Georgia Tech sometimes, climbs up there in terms of popularity. ESPN's going to give them the prime slots too. That's going to be your 3:30, 8 p.m. kickoff. Meanwhile, Syracuse is going to be relegated to noon. That's just the way it works. That's what makes the world go round. And the way the SEC and Big Ten handle their distributions is those are all done equally. But in the case of the Big 12, years ago, it was not equal. Texas was able to make money on the Longhorn Network, keep a bigger slice of the media rights pile based on being Texas. And now Clemson is likely going to enjoy the same thing. As a matter of fact, the state reached out to an attorney, David McKenzie, who looked at the settlement, the details of the settlement, and said, quote, Clemson has secured unprecedented flexibility while maintaining current benefits. And yeah, that's true. Clemson now has flexibility moving forward, but didn't lose anything. As a matter of fact, will only gain. And again, David McKenzie, an attorney, told the state this effectively converts ACC membership from a binding obligation, locked in, to an annual economic decision. And that economic decision is going to be driven by the exit fees, which will stair-step down. So it's $165 million after this year. Then it goes, stay with me, to 147, 129, 111, 93, and then after the 20, 30, 31 year, it goes down to $75 million for each of the next 5 years.
It's almost a subscription, excuse me.
Right.
It's almost a subscription to the ACC. Or,
yes.
Or opposite, ACC is almost subscribing to these schools.
They are. That's right. They have a sub. That's right. They've got a subscription, and they can get out of it. You can get out of it, and the cost will go down over time in order to get out of it. And the reason that 2030 year on the calendar is so important is because that's when the college football playoff media rights run out. That's when the Big 12 will be renegotiating a new deal, and so will the Big 10. So the ACC, as we know it, will it exist after 2030? Josh, what do you think so?
Yes, it'll exist, but everything's going to be different with college sports in 2030. That's 5 years away.
You're
Look
right.
at how much has changed since 2020.
You're on the money with that, Josh. It may be changing too fast for some of us. We'll talk more about this on the other side. 888-898-2525 if you want to join.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Some passing clouds overnight with a low temperature dipping down to 73. Tomorrow, very nice for the 4th with sunshine-filled skies, high climbing to 94. For the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, highs around 90. To go with a blend of sunshine and clouds, we have that usual 20% chance of an afternoon downpour. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Republicans in Congress have muscled President Trump's tax and spending bill to passage. At nearly 900 pages, the legislation is a sprawling collection of tax breaks, spending cuts, and other Republican priorities, including new money for national defense and deportations. The House approved the bill on Thursday, the final step necessary to get the bill to Trump's desk by the GOP's self-imposed deadline of July 4th. President Trump is complaining the U.S. provided too many weapons to Ukraine under the previous administration. Trump gave his first public comments Thursday on the pause in some shipments as Russia escalates its latest offensive. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 344 points, the Nasdaq rose 207, the S&P advanced 51. More details at srnnews.com.
Every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on The Point, join me, Chad Jordan, and my co-host Larry Jordan for the Palmetto Real Estate Pros. We'll help you out whether you're looking to buy, sell, or just learn all things real estate every Friday right here at 100.7 The Point.
When your pipes panic, Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning steps right in, fast and friendly. Josh and his team aren't just fixing leaks, they're restoring your peace of mind. This is when you're at your most vulnerable. You got a problem, you need a solution. They're not coming out to upsell you or talk you into something new this or new that. You'll appreciate their process. They'll tell you what needs to get done and what it'll cost before they ever even bring in their tools to start the work. They're locally owned, which unfortunately is no longer the norm in the Midlands. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning will treat every home like their own. They've done work for me, for my brother, countless numbers of Point listeners. Dial 799-2222 or visit franklinplumbing.sc.com and you tell them Kev from The Point sent you. You will experience plumbing that's more than just a fix. It's a solution from people who care about their work and stand by it. When you need them, please don't panic. Just call Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning, 799-2222.
At Palmetto State Armory, we offer the largest selection of guns and ammunition at unbeatable prices. Our knowledgeable and friendly staff are here to provide personalized assistance, ensuring you find exactly what you need. If you enjoy outdoor activities like hunting, camping, or hiking, our clothing and outdoor gear collection has got you covered. We also feature an exceptional indoor range facility where you can experience the thrill of shooting in a safe and controlled environment. Visit us today at PalmettoStateArmory.com or your local retail store. Palmetto State Armory, American made for life.
If you've never had genuine Wagyu or Hereford steaks and burgers, you don't know what you're missing. Time to order the best of the best from HandJCattle.com. These are local farmers in Saluda where tradition meets quality. The best quality beef and a discount for Point listeners. Enter keyword The Point as one word and get 10% off, plus free delivery in Lexington and Richland County orders of $50 or more. It's cooked in season over at HandJCattle.com.
Hello, this is Stacy Huff, host of Huff Nation Sports Zone, each and every Saturday, 10 to 11 a.m. right here on 100.7 FM, The Point, and also 1470 a.m. It'll be a fun trip around the world of sports. Huff Nation Sports Zone, check it out.
Do you crave growth for your business? That's where The Point comes in. Fran Halloran here. Kevin Cohen and the other local hosts like me have worked to create a space where listeners transform into family. Are you a local business aiming for the stars? You need to get with Kevin and let him help create an individualized blueprint for your growth using the influential stage of The Point Radio. Reach out directly at 563-8558. Teaming with The Point, make this year extraordinary.
Welcome back to Sports Talk, and we are in the back stretch of this shortened week. And it just occurred to me in the last segment, and we're going to get to your calls, 888-898-2525. Smitty and Josh filling in right now for Phil and Chris, who are off. Chris will be back with us next week. I'll be jumping on those shows as well. Phil, extended vacation. Hope he enjoys himself. I was picking on Boston College and Syracuse a little bit. Should probably pick on Pitt, too. You know, I don't think Pitt's bringing a lot to the ACC. And Cal and Stanford just stick out like a sore thumb. So there you go.
Fair. For the record, we are also closer to 2050 than we are to 2000.
That's remarkable. That is remarkable because, yeah, we crossed over the midpoint of 2025 yesterday at noon. That is something. That is something to think about. I hope we're all still around in 2050. Let's go to those phone lines. We've got a couple of callers lined up. Bruce in Missouri is back with us. Hey, Bruce.
Can you hear me?
Hey, we got you, Bruce.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We got you, Bruce.
Okay. Josh, I'm going to give you a little bit of information to me. I'm a Clemson fan. At Clemson. I was on the sidelines taking photographs of the game. Now, we got a pass being thrown down the field. It's a Clemson pass. And he's running down the field. All of a sudden, somebody stands in front of my camera, so I can't get it. It's an agent from the state agency, law enforcement, standing in front of me because he was a Gamecock fan. You need to stop saying that you're a fan of Florida. You got to be a Gamecock to survive in that atmosphere. I learned that lesson by accident, and I know what they are. They're a bunch of thieves wanting you to convert you to Gamecocks. So you need to stay low, please, for your health. That's what happened. I was over the photographers in Clemson University.
Well, thank you, Bruce, for the call. I think definitely that's an interesting thing. I'm not sure that anybody's going to sabotage my my career because I'm a Gators fan. You know, I don't plan to be working for the university taking pictures on a sideline, but if that happens to be the case, maybe don't step in my way.
Bruce was saying, he was kind of saying Gamecock fans it's a cult.
Yeah.
He was saying it was a cult. All right. Well, we'll see how it goes when you get to campus. Josh,
Phil's trying to convert me, by the way. Phil has already said you're a Gamecock, whatever. That's not happening. Maybe
because you're going to school there, and
right.
you do have to pledge some allegiance. Those will be your classmates now, Josh.
Right. And I'm not saying I hate the Gamecocks. I've never said that. If there's another team in the entire nation that I like, it's the Gamecocks. But
all right.
As long as they're not playing Florida, as long as they are not playing against my Florida Gators. And I'll always be like that. Always.
All right, let's see if you make it. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. 888-898-2525. Bruce in Missouri told us, I know what they are. So, not the lighthearted call I thought we were going to get, but maybe we'll get one from Keith in Camden. Keith, welcome and happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th to y'all. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out that previous phone call. But
I think we all are, Keith.
Yeah. Look, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm a Carolina fan, and I'm not a Tater hater, but I guess I'm probably pretty close. You look at this rearrangement, the reality is, and no one knows what the landscape's going to look like a college football 5 years from now, let alone a year from now. But the reality is, the ACC is heading to a point to where I'm not sure it's going to exist 5 years from now. When you've got one or two people getting most of the candy, that's going to create problems. And with Oklahoma, Texas, and the reality is we probably will see it with Clemson. Look at like North Carolina, Florida State. I just don't see how that's going to work out. Maybe it does, but I don't see it. I see trouble down the road, but not going to have an immediate effect on Clemson. They're secure financially, but long term, they better be looking for another partner. Love the show. Y'all have a good one.
You too, Keith. Have a great 4th of July weekend. The more I think about it, Josh, the more I don't like the long-term viability of the ACC. I've almost changed my mind. At first, I thought it was, I don't know. I knew this is where it was going. There's almost a bit of a nothing burger. But now, Keith and Camden just said, when you have one school or two schools or three schools getting more of the candy, what's going to happen? How is this going to play out? So we know that now the viewership for football, 60% of the money is going to be carved off, and then it's going to be split. 75% goes to the schools with the highest viewership in football. Well, that's going to be Clemson and Florida State. Is there any argument against that? Although I think North Carolina with Bill Belichick is certainly going to draw some viewers. And of course, North Carolina, some of that money goes for basketball viewership. But where is this going long term? Think about that. Where is it going long term for California? Where is it going for Wake Forest? Where is it going for Stanford? Where is it going for Pitt or Syracuse or Boston College? They will not be able to compete in their own conference. They're not going to have the same resources as the other teams in their same conference. This is going to be problematic because that jealousy is going to – then they're going to want to redo the deal, which they can't do. All they're doing is they want to keep Clemson hanging around, right? And I don't know what SMU – SMU's a wild card in this in my mind. What is really going to happen here long term? You just cannot survive, as Keith and Camden just pointed out. We saw it happen in the Big 12. You can't just – it's good for Clemson. So this is not about – Clemson fans should really be, hey, this is the best of both worlds because they're going to have the flexibility to leave in the end if they want to, if they get a different offer. But if they don't, they stay, continue to succeed, and the rich will get richer. In other words, Clemson, if they're good this year in football – if Florida State's good this year in football and they draw a lot of viewers, well, they're going to get a bigger piece of the pie. And what's that going to lead to? They're going to get better and better, and there's going to be separation over the top of the division and the bottom. Virginia won't be able to compete. Period.
Let me throw a scenario at you. All these small teams leave. Not small teams. I'll say, Cal, the smaller teams in the ACC. I'm just talking. And because they're not making enough money, their football programs are just not good enough, frankly. They don't have the viewership. And they manage to come out of a way and form a new conference, we'll just say. The same exact thing is going to happen. I mean,
meaning eventually the teams that are drawing the eyeballs and as I said earlier, carrying the water, they're going to want a bigger piece of the pie.
Right. It's all about money in this entire thing.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen. Hold on, but it doesn't happen in the Big Ten, and it's not happening in the SEC.
It's true.
So what you have to wonder about is, the truth is, Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina are not comparing themselves to the other schools in their own conference. Clemson does not say to itself, as long as we're doing better than Boston College, as long as we're doing better than Virginia Tech, we're okay. Clemson is comparing itself against Georgia, against Ohio State, against Michigan. They want to make sure, against Texas, they want to make sure they're bringing in as much revenue to their individual part of their real estate as those other major programs. And they are not, because the ACC rights deal does not command enough. So the only solution was, well, then we've got to get a bigger piece of the existing pie in the ACC. And what Keith and Camden's point is, and I think it lands. It lands with me. This can't be a long-term solution.
Right.
How can you imagine 7 years from now, Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina, and I don't know, maybe Miami has a run, maybe SMU has a run and really captures the attention of the Dallas fan base with such a big television revenue. It was such a big market there. If that were to come to pass, what's going to happen to Cal? What's going to happen to Wake Forest? Wake Forest is not making more money in this deal. They will, because the pie doesn't get bigger, they will just get a smaller slice. And they agreed to it because they want to keep the ACC together. And the thought is, well, we'll just get better. We'll fight forward. But it's going to get harder because every time money is split up, Clemson's going to get more, Florida State's going to get more, Wake Forest, Virginia, Stanford will get less.
It's turning into different tiers. Every conference is a different tier of performance. SEC, arguably the best performing in athletics, in academics, in money. Every single thing about the SEC, the SEC is arguably the best. And all these schools that are the best in the ACC are trying to move to the SEC because they want to be with the best. They want to make the most.
Well, the Big Ten has an argument as well, especially about academics.
Right.
So be careful there.
That's fair.
And the ACC has some great academic schools. But my point would be, you're right about they want to move over there. Clemson wants to make sure they're getting as much money as a team like Texas, as Georgia, or close to it, as close as they possibly can. And they're going to get more, and Clemson will make more, and Florida State will make more. But what Keith was saying, and I agree with, can that go on forever? Can the ACC exist in its current format? Can that ACC exist and thrive in that environment? Or will there be a gap that is created between the schools that continue to get the money? Notre Dame is going to be involved with this, by the way. If Notre Dame or Clemson or Florida State, they just keep in North Carolina, keep getting bigger and bigger checks than Stanford and Wake Forest and Virginia. What happens to the ACC? Not this year, not next year, but after 2030. I don't know. This is going to be fascinating to watch going forward. But locally, we've been so focused. Is Clemson going to stay in the ACC? And yes, they are. Is North Carolina staying in the ACC? Yes, they are. Is Florida State staying? Yes. So the ACC still exists. But just like it broke up the Big 12, can you exist with 3, 4, 5 schools getting that much more revenue in their coffers than the teams at the bottom? How long can you exist like that? How long can you do it? I don't know. Is Wake Forest, Boston College, Syracuse, are they going to be happy being dregs of the ACC?
I'm not sure there's a good answer for it.
I don't know. The future will tell us. But as you said, you pointed out, and I think you were right, and we'll go to break on this. I think you were right, Josh. 2030, that's light years in terms of athletics. That is a long, long way away in terms of athletics. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But I don't think this is a long-term solution. I didn't think I was going to get too opinionated. Day before 4th of July, we're all thinking about spending time with the family, picnicking, making sure you got your sunscreen in your travel bag. But the details from this ACC Clemson settlement got me going a little bit. Back after this.
This is Major Billy Downer with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Boating season is here, and as you get ready to go out on the water this spring and summer, make sure you have all the required safety equipment on board. Check for a sound device. A horn or whistle will suffice for most boats. Inspect all of your life jackets. Make sure they're in good condition and are the correct size for all of your passengers. If your boat is over 16 feet, you will need to make sure you have an approved throwable device on board as well. Remember, boating safety is no accident.
G3 here with Tsunami Bar Sports, and it's time for a fall preview. That's right, 720 Chris Drive, 378 and I-26, Frontage Road, where you can now preview the best technology for golf known to man. It's the Tsunami Bar. It's live weight. It's the only technology out where you get your tempo and flow going before you play. Now, it also serves as a pattern support tool. 720 Chris Drive, Frontage Road, 378 and I-26. You also can visit the Garage Gym Pro Shop. Pick up your tools, take them home, and while you're here, tour the Scramble Course 6-hole pitch and putt right now.
Final segment before the 4th of July weekend. I hope everybody has a very safe 4th of July weekend. We got some safety tips from Major Billy Downer last night on SC Wild. You can find that on Spotify. You can go back and hear it on our YouTube channel as well. Search for SportsTalkSC. But he had some great tips for staying safe on this 4th of July weekend, especially if you're going to be out boating. Maybe you own a boat and it hasn't been out in a while, or one of your buddies. Not a problem, not a bad thing to go back and freshen up on some of those tips. You don't want to have anything go wrong in this long weekend. But, yeah, I got revved up in the last segment, Josh, about realignment. Hey, didn't think I was going to. I thought this was just going to be a week. We don't talk about much, but Chappell Fowler in the state, they released some of the details about the Clemson settlement, and it's good for Clemson. I think that's the bottom line. It's good for Clemson. It's good for Florida State. It's good for North Carolina. And I think it's bad for the teams that don't draw as many viewers, that are not as big in terms of branding in the ACC. But, Stanford and Cal, any port in a storm. They needed help. The ACC offered them help. But long term, is the ACC as it exists now viable as a group? I don't think so. I think there's going to be a seismic shift coming up sometime in the next 5 years before the next media rights deals come up for the college football playoff.
Well, I think I need to correct myself because you were right, and you corrected me during the break. They're definitely, SEC is arguably not the biggest academic school, or academic conference, excuse me. It's arguably with Big Ten. Big Ten definitely has some and I'm misspeaking a lot here too. So excuse me when I say this, but I think you get my point. Big Ten definitely has some very highly academic schools, if that's even English.
Highly rated academic schools, and so does the ACC.
Right.
And the SEC does too, but my point being, we just need to stick to athletics. Stick to athletics. And what will happen with the ACC long term, and to me, this deal, it was just a move for the ACC to delay. They needed a settlement that would keep Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, and the biggest brands in place long enough for them to figure this out. So, ACC, you're on the clock. And in the meantime, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, I keep bringing those three schools up, they're going to wet their beak because they will draw viewers. And Duke will, because some of this is basketball viewership. And we'll see how the money breaks out when it's all reported at the end of next year. But I think there's going to be some schools they're going to feel very, very cold, very, very left out in the ACC. That will breed jealousy and all sorts of problems. And it may create a chasm, a schism there in the ACC. And then what happens at that point? Let's say the teams that are getting the most, like Clemson, we're pretty happy now. We can win like this. Then what's going to happen with those schools at the bottom? Are they going to look for greener pastures, say, in the Big 12 perhaps? Are there any teams that might say, the Big 12 pays X amount, that's more than we get as one of the teams that makes the least in the ACC? So that's that. What about Stanford or Cal going to the Big 12, where they would play more teams from the western portion of the United States? Maybe the ACC is just a stopgap for them. But if they were to do that, they'd have to pay a hefty, exorbitant exit fee. At least they would before 2030.
Smitty, just on Twitter, I just saw Mitt Winter posted on X. Another court case has been filed challenging the NCAA eligibility rules by 4 college football players. I don't have much on it yet, but I just wanted to mention it challenges the 5-year eligibility window and the same rules that challenge the Pavia case. I haven't even read the first page of it yet, but I am saying it's just going to come more into legalities, and it's.
Yeah, Josh, you're right about that. I know as of yesterday when Darren Boyd, who was the former College of Charleston basketball player, when he brought a lawsuit against the NCAA for eligibility, claiming that his 5-year clock shouldn't be up because he played NAIA, just like Pavia said, I played JUCO, so my clock shouldn't have started yet. And Darren Boyd, I know that was the 24th case. Mitt Winter, who you can find on Twitter, he does a lot of this. If you're interested in that kind of thing, 24 cases had already been brought. So this is at least 25 that we know the NCAA is going to spend most of its time and its money now on court cases. And so we could see a whole new round of changes in the NCAA if any of these 25 court cases succeed. That's not what I set out to talk about here as we head into the 4th of July weekend. I'm thinking about putting my feet up, just enjoying some baseball, also maybe some golf. The John Deere Classic is happening right now. We told you earlier that Doug Gim got in at 9 under, a 62. He is in the clubhouse as the leader in the first round. Austin Eckroat and Max Homa come in at 8 under par, 63. They are tied for second. And we've got some local players. Carson Young dropped to 67 today, 4 under par. Kevin Kisner, even par 71. Trace Crow comes in at 1 over. And Matt Neesmith is 3 over par at 71 after 1 round. So tomorrow is moving day, and we'll find out more about the John Deere Classic later on. We also know that Wesley Bryan, locally, finished 2 under par in the BMW International Open. That's also in the first round. That is 3 shots back of the leader. It's a 5-way tie for first place there at the BMW International Open taking place in Germany, and that's where George Bryan is tonight. GB3 not with us tonight for birdies and bogeys because he's out in Germany watching both his sons, Wesley Bryan and George Bryan IV, play. And again, Wesley Bryan gets in the clubhouse at 2 under par after the first round.
Where it is currently 2:57 in the morning.
Okay, so we're going to leave them alone. That's why they're already in. It was dark long ago, and there's George Bryan IV, who finishes 1 over par. All right, Josh, final chance. What did we miss this week? Anything else you want to make sure you go over? You're going to watch the hot dog eating contest. You said you're not going to watch the NASCAR race, the street race in Chicago. So you're going to watch the hot dog eating contest this week.
You know, didn't they this is the first year they've had it back, right? Because last year they got rid of it. No,
I think they got rid of the famous. Oh, why can I not remember his
Joey
name?
Chestnut.
Joey Chestnut, yes.
Yeah, they got rid of him. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but now he's back.
Yeah,
he's
okay.
back this year.
So essentially what you're saying is, yes, it was gone last year. Because
It was
the only
gone.
reason
That's
why I watched.
It wasn't real. The winner
Yes.
has an asterisk. That's all right. You got to beat Joey Chestnut if you want to claim you are the Nathan's hot dog eating champion. It's the grossest thing we do on television.
They dunk it in water. It's disgusting.
If you're an alien and you come in, all right, let me see this culture. Let me see what you guys have. Bring me the biggest and the best. They would come down and maybe if they would meet with some of our scientists, perhaps they would meet our best and brightest athletes, and then they would say, all right, what are you guys doing on 4th of July?
Joey Chestnut.
And you would watch Joey Chestnut dunking hot dogs in water so he can eat 120 of them.
That's
in
wild.
10 minutes.
In 10 minutes. That's the even crazier thing. That's disgusting.
I can watch, but it has to be on an empty stomach.
I may have to
eat and watch.
I may have to try my best to follow along with him.
All right.
Tutorial.
Happy 4th of July, everyone. Chris Bergen back in the cockpit Monday. I'll join him as well. We'll have some fun, talk baseball and more. Have a great weekend, everybody.